When you have to walk 5 kilometers to the local well to get enough water to drink out of, how do you take a shower? Like, it was to think about people living for 6,000 years, if you want to call it that, from the dawn of human existence, the same way for a millennia. Maybe they have a tin roof, a little bit of different clothing, but basically these are untouched. And there's thousands of people groups and tribes like this throughout the world that are still untouched.
If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, so Tanzania itself has about 21 people groups that are considered unreached.
And unreached is basically less than 1% of active believers without an active church.
There's different metrics by different organizations, but that's a good synopsis.
Okay.
The church is not sustainable by indigenous believers. It's missionaries coming in and running the churches. Aside from the one little area of Datuga that has some Christian witness, the rest of it is considered unreached.
And depending on the stats you look at, anywhere from 60 to about 120,000 people.
More than that, because they're part of the Barbite, and that's anywhere from like 180,000 to 220,000. It's a large area in the interior. In that area, it's more unreached, is because there just isn't a lot there to compel people to come. You know, it's different when you're on the coast where a lot of trade and stuff has come over the years, or you're near Mount Kilimanjaro or Lake Victoria. But some of these interior areas, there really is no reason to go. There's not industry, there's not natural resources to mine or exploit. It's just people living off the land. And so unless you have an intentional mission to reach them with some sort of message, government's not going and really doing a whole lot in some of these areas.
Sure.
There's a lot of work to be done, you know, and I know some of the other people groups in Tanzania, some of them are very Islamic based. And so that adds a whole different element to how you do the mission and how you preach and what you proclaim. But for Tanzania, I think the number is 21 unreached people groups in this country. There's some work to be done for the church in Tanzania.
You know, a lot of people, you hear about them like, I'm not going to ask God what to do because I don't want him to tell me, go be a missionary in Africa, right? And you love it here. There's some difficulties you deal with, for sure. You don't have to come move to Africa to be able to bless and love on the people in Africa. You do a lot of 2-week missions. You can come and have massive impact. You can come and see healings through your own hands.
Right. One of the aspects of our long-term missionary goals here is that we run short-term mission trips. For us, we find them very valuable and impactful because the people who come on our trips are plugging into a longer-term mission and a longer-term assignment in a country or a region or with the people. And so what happens is when people come and they get to plug in, it's like we can go from here to here a lot quicker. Instead of these small incremental steps, when we have a group come, we can do some bigger events, we can do some bigger outreach, we have more human resources to use over 4 or 5 days to make a bigger impact in an area. And so that's been one of the aspects of our missionary ministry, I would say, really from the time that I got here to Africa. And so then we provide a place for people to come and experience missions and missions work, to experience Africa, people here, to see culture very differently, how they do church and the sound of worship. And
it's amazing.
You know, the way they dress and every aspect of culture is very, very different from ours. And so it creates a cross-cultural experience as well. And invariably what we find is when people come to Africa, they generally want to come back because Africa is an amazing place.
Yeah.
It's an amazing land with amazing people, with amazing cultures, with amazing scenery.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't see
animals
it here, but just over there is Mount Kilimanjaro rising up from the African plain. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to give people opportunities to grow in their walk with the Lord. I grew up in what I have since figured out is a unique church culture, where I had 2 pastors that co-led the church, and we had a motto in our church. If you're bringing an issue to the church of something the church is not doing, you have to be part of the solution.
Okay.
So
we need more of that.
You couldn't complain about it and then not bring early on. You know, we had 2 kids. We had no children's ministry. So we had to start that. And so the people who really wanted that had to participate in that. And then I brought up, hey, we have no outreach ministry. Okay, Peter, well, you oversee that. Awesome. So it was also very empowering for people to step out in faith, to get experience, to learn how to do things, trial and error. And so that's the church culture I grew up with.
That's cool.
So like they recognized the call of God on my life. So I would get to preach once a quarter. If I had a message to share, I would tell them and they'd be, all right, Peter, bring that on this Sunday. It was like we needed intercession ministry. So we didn't have that. Well, let's start that. So me and another guy named Bruce, we started that. And then that took off. And that before long, we had like 40 or 50 people in the house from other churches because the presence of God was so thick. It was the hopping place for about 2 years. It was really fun. And so that's what I grew up with. So we structure our trips in a way where people get the opportunities that they might not normally get in the American church. So we had a young gal on this trip that shared her testimony publicly for the first time.
Yeah.
Very powerful. We had people that got to preach in churches for the first time in their life. Second time.
Well, third time, actually. I did want to call back home.
Because we send our teams out to the local churches where we can, and they are received as a man or woman of God. And invariably, it usually ends up pretty amazing for everyone involved.
The leap forward's not only for the church here, but it's also for everyone who comes on your trip.
Correct. And that's intentional because that's what I experienced and that's how I got raised up. Is I had pastors that risked a little bit to give me opportunities when maybe I wasn't the most seasoned, when maybe I wasn't the most mature, when my revelation of the kingdom back then was very low, and I probably would disagree with most of those messages from them. Because they recognized the call of God on my life and they wanted me to walk in fulfillment of it, they gave me the opportunities in the safe space of the church for me to grow. And so we try to do the same thing with our mission trips, stretch people a little bit. We don't force anybody, but we encourage people to step out in faith, try something new, have God use you.
There's a lot of different people you can go on missions with, and they're amazing. But I think that's a unique part of Kashaba Tribe is you're encouraged to step out in faith and preach a message, for instance.
Right. I've been with other organizations doing part of teams to serve, and there's nothing wrong with how they do that.
Right.
I just know I like to get people off the bench, to use a sports metaphor. We don't have the starting five and then a sixth man, and that's what we do the whole game.
Yeah.
I'd like to clear the bench and give everybody opportunities to play. We've seen a lot of success and we've seen a lot of growth. And, one of the things I'm most proud about is we actually have quite a few missionaries that are now full-time on the field that had their first missions experience with us over the last 17 years.
Wow, that's cool.
And that's really cool. And, they're in different places from Kona to Thailand to Rwanda to Zambia, other places around the world. Some are in YWAM, so they travel to different places. That makes me very happy.
Yeah, YWAM's Youth with a Mission. Yeah. Go on a trip, go get out there. Maybe you're not called to be full-time missionaries. Most of us aren't, and we don't need to be.
Right.
But you'll have more fun coming on a 2-week trip and seeing lives change, seeing the blind eyes open, deaf ears open, and more importantly, the Father's love overwhelm people and transform lives. I mean, we went on a safari on this trip. We saw lions and tigers and not tigers. No bears either. But we saw elephants, we saw zebras, we saw hippos, warthogs, giraffes, zebras. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. That was all part of it. Last time I saw gorillas, it was life-changing. And so I'd say, first of all, go on a trip. You don't have to go with Peter. If you do want to go with somebody and you want to be thrown into the middle of it and called up to live who God created you to be, walk into your identity. I think Peter's organization is absolutely amazing. But go build a house in Mexico and it'll change your life too. It doesn't really matter what you're doing.
Yeah, there's a variety. Pick the one that you're suited for. Ours are really ministry trips. You get opportunities to minister in different places. I love taking you in the hospital. We go into prisons, orphanages, kids' homes, crusades, house to house. Every trip is different of ours. There's some people that want to build a house and push dirt. I knew a guy didn't want to do a type of trip that we do, but if he could use a bulldozer, push dirt, build a house. He loved it to death.
Yeah.
And so there's different ways to serve, and find the one that connects to you, and then just say yes. Go on a God adventure with the Lord. Like, it's okay. You may not be called to full-time missions. That's fine. Go take a 2-week vacation with Jesus and go someplace amazing and get out of your bubble and experience something different. Because even though people come to serve and to minister here, the team members that come invariably are changed.
Absolutely.
By what they've experienced. And
Every
we've seen
single-
that. We've seen that on this trip. I won't name names, but there are some people who came on this trip, and they look very different now after what God did in them during this trip.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. But you have to be willing to say yes and give of your time, talent, and treasure to make it happen. There is a cost.
And get out of your comfort zone.
That's right. But it's worth every penny. And go see the world some. It's a big world. Get out of your bubble and go experience something different. Do it with the Lord. And you're welcome to do it with us, though. KashabaTribe.com. Check out our trips there.
Do it.